If you have a hard time with boundaries, how might your life be different if you could say no as easily as a joyful yes? I'm Love Coach Mariya, and for over a decade now, I've been encouraging folks to empower their compassion so it's big enough for ourselves as well as others, and so our boundaries can become healthier than ever. You're listening to Empower Your Compassion, and on this show, we'll be unlocking transformative insights to help you reconnect to your true yes, so you can say no from that more expansive energy and get more of what you want in your relationships and your life without sacrificing your compassion. Are you ready for more love? Let's grow. Hello, thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to talk about how boundaries and needs are different and how we communicate about them differently for optimal success. So there's a common misconception that communicating about boundaries means telling others what they're supposed to be doing. But again, boundaries are effectively our resource limits, and they're our responsibility to manage. When we communicate about them, it's really as a gift of information for the benefit of the relationship. And then it's on us to take the actions that will keep us in alignment with our values, goals, and limits. Needs, on the other hand, are things like connection, safety, and creative expression. A lot of our needs can actually, and in some cases like self-worth, more effectively be met on our own. But we are social creatures, and a large portion of our needs do require other people. The trick is to not get too attached to how our needs get met. Another common misconception confuses strategies for needs. See, all of our behaviors are actually strategies for getting our needs met. And sometimes we conflate the two and insist that there's only one way a specific need can get met, or that it can only get met from a specific source or person, leading us to have a hard time separating the strategy from the need. But when we're clear on that distinction, we can actually find an amazing array of ways to get our needs met. And in a relationship where both parties are open to that level of creative collaboration, we can actually find win-win solutions where everybody's needs get met. Some folks say that compromise is essential in relationships. Others say never compromise. Personally, I find it most effective to always be willing to compromise on strategies so we never have to compromise on needs. One of the best ways to communicate about needs comes from a groundbreaking book called Nonviolent Communication, written by Marshall Rosenberg a few decades ago. The 3 pillars of nonviolent communication, or NVC, are empathy, non-judgment, and personal responsibility. And the 4 core premises are: 1, that we all share from the same bucket of feelings: happiness, sadness, anger, and the myriad of nuanced emotions in between. Second premise is that we all share from the same bucket of needs, again, like connection, safety, creative expression, and a long list of others. The third premise is that all of our feelings occur in response to our needs getting met or not getting met. So feeling good, needs are getting met. Not feeling so good, needs are not getting met. The fourth premise is that all of our behaviors are strategies for getting our needs met. So with that in mind, we can make effective requests of others to help us get our needs met as follows. I personally recommend starting with self-empathy. And what that is, it involves recognizing that you're activated by something that's going on, checking in with yourself and asking about your feelings, identifying the feelings that you're having, and finding the words, the emotion words to describe what you're feeling. I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling hurt, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling frustrated. Then check in about the needs. What needs are not getting met in this situation? Maybe it's for consideration or cleanliness or order or physical safety in that sense. Taking that time to check in with yourself is magically cathartic. Providing that self-empathy can really help regulate your nervous system as well. From there, you are more easily able to access empathy for the other person involved in the situation. And then you can maybe ask yourself, what might they be feeling? What needs are motivating the strategies behind their behavior? Then you can approach them with a conversation starter. And I'm going to break this out a little bit based on what Marshall Rosenberg recommends in nonviolent communication. But I want to really emphasize before I get into it that this is all leading up to you making a request, and it's really important that you think of it as a conversation starter, because once you make that request, you need to stay open to their rebuttal. It's sort of a negotiation, and this is the starting point. So in order to open that discussion, again, you've checked in for self-empathy, you've checked in on some guesses about what they're experiencing and what's motivating them, and then you approach them with the first step, which is observation. And this observation is best made with pure objectivity. So that means no assumptions, no interpretations. You want to describe the situation the way that a robot would. So let's take dirty dishes for an example. Instead of saying the kitchen's a mess, which, one person's mess might be another person's good enough, you would state a fact such as, I noticed that there are half a dozen dirty dishes sitting by the sink. Observation, that's it. Objective observation. From there, it's really helpful to, I said we don't want to include assumptions or interpretations. However, there is an opportunity here to make some explicit guesses as like a gesture of empathy and say, I'm guessing that you are prioritizing efficiency, for example. And then you would state your feelings. And when you state your feelings, again, you want to use emotion words. You don't want to incorporate assumptions and interpretations or even accusations. So we wouldn't want to say, I feel like you don't care about me, because that's just going to put them on the defensive. They're going to say, of course I care about you. Instead, you would say, I feel hurt. No one can argue with that. Your feelings are your feelings. You can argue with the stories you tell about it, like I feel like you don't care about me, but I feel hurt is perfectly legitimate and inassailable. So you could say, I'm feeling hurt and frustrated, and then you would connect it with ownership to your needs, because each of us has our own unique blueprint, backstory of how our feelings are connected to our needs and how we prioritize our needs in different situations. So again, dishes case, we could say, I noticed there's half a dozen dirty dishes by the sink. I'm guessing you were just prioritizing your need for efficiency. However, I am feeling hurt and frustrated because we've talked about this before, so it's not really meeting my need for care and consideration, and it's also not meeting my need for order and cleanliness and safety. Then the next step is the request. And again, I recommend coming into this with an open mind, and there's not really a hard, fast rule about what sort of language makes a request different from a demand. I mean, there's some obvious ones, but ultimately, it's your energy. And if you are expecting a yes and going to get really upset about a no, you're really coming into it with a demand, even no matter how gentle your language is. But I do recommend using the sentence stem, would you be willing? And then again, just make that the starting point of the discussion. So I noticed there's half a dozen dirty dishes by the sink. I imagine you were prioritizing your need for efficiency. Unfortunately, it's leaving me feeling frustrated and hurt because it's not really meeting my needs for consideration and safety. Would you be willing to always rinse your dishes and put them straight into the dishwasher? Okay, that's that opener. The shorthand for that is OFNR, observation, feelings, needs, requests, but I like to add that self-empathy and other empathy at the beginning, and then expressing that other empathy with the observation statement. And again, this is the opener. So now it's negotiation. Maybe now they're going to say, well, actually, I was feeling and needing this, and I can't really provide for that request, but maybe, so, and then it just becomes a negotiation. And when you are both willing to collaborate creatively on strategies, you can find a way to get everyone's needs met. Like maybe you realize that maybe it is efficiency. Maybe this person doesn't have the time to even rinse the dishes because they're in a rush in the morning. And so maybe you guys can put your heads together to come up with a way to create more time for this person in the morning. Ultimately, the idea is to find a win-win solution so that everyone's needs can get met. These are some remarkable tools, but the real work comes with putting it all into practice. And one of those very human needs is support, especially with learning new things. So whether it's boundaries, needs requests, or any other skill you're trying to learn or personal growth you're undergoing, if you want a sustainable transformation, I strongly encourage you to get some outside support. It doesn't have to be me, but if you think you might like it to be, go to explorelovingboundaries.com and grab a spot on my calendar. No charge, no strings. You can tell me all about your situation and we'll come up with a game plan for you. It may or may not involve us working together, but you will definitely gain some clarity and some resources. Wherever you're at on your journey, I send you love and courage. Namaste.